Some terrifying cults are so well known that they can be described in a single word: Manson, Waco, Jonestown, just to name a few. Others may not be so iconic or received as much media coverage, but that doesn't mean they're any less sinister. Many have racked up far higher body counts and committed horrors far more unspeakable. The Order of the Solar Temple. Formed in 1984 by Joseph DiMambro and Luc Jouret, and with followers in various countries including Switzerland, France, and Canada, the group that would come to be known as the Order of the Solar Temple drew inspiration from a variety of sources, including the Rosicrucians and the Knights Templar. Over time, the group's beliefs shifted away from New Age spiritualism and became increasingly doomsday-focused and paranoid. Jouret, a doctor, was the face of the organization, delivering the lectures that, despite warnings of the looming environmental apocalypse, were magnetic enough to attract new followers. DiMambro managed the group's finances, which grew impressively as the membership, comprised mostly of middle and upper class people, grew to an estimated 400. The Solar Temple, which bounced between headquarters in Switzerland and Canada, saw its fortunes decline in the 1990s. There were high-profile defections, gun charges, and allegations of sexual misconduct. In 1994, the group made good on its beliefs that members would need to ascend to a different spiritual plane in order to survive the environmental apocalypse and be reborn on a planet orbiting the star Sirius. Their method of transformation? Fire. At the end of September 1994, the group killed a member who'd spoken against them, Tony Dutoit, as well as his wife and infant son. Days later, on October 4th and 5th, 2 solar temple buildings in Switzerland went up in flames. The next morning, investigators were baffled by much of what they discovered at the sites. 48 people dead. Some may have committed suicide, while others were most likely killed. Some had been injected with tranquilizers or had plastic bags over their heads, while others were shot. DiMambro, his wife and children, and Jouret were among those killed. The tragedy didn't end there. In December 1995, a chalet in the Swiss Alps was found burned with 16 bodies inside, most of which had been killed prior to the fire. In 1997, 5 more members perished in a Quebec house. Counting the Dutoit family and the subsequent suicide of the Solar Temple duo who'd killed them, the mysterious cult's death toll stands at 74. The Matamoros Human Sacrifice Cult. In March 1989, a University of Texas student named Mark Kilroy went missing while on spring break. He'd been staying on South Padre Island, but on the night in question, he'd ventured across the border to Mexico to check out the bar scene, where he vanished without a trace. 4 weeks later, his grisly fate was revealed. As people reported at the time, his brain was found first. It turned up in a black cauldron, and it had been boiled in blood over an open fire, along with a turtle shell, a horseshoe, a spinal column, and other human bones. His ritual death and dismemberment had been carried out in service to a bizarre drug-demented occult religion practiced by an American marijuana smuggler operating out of Mexico. Authorities were led to a grave containing Kilroy's body, or at least what remained of it, and after that, the uncovering of mutilated corpses went on and on. all of them buried on the grounds of Rancho Santa Elena. The victims had been slashed, beaten, shot, hanged, or boiled alive. The only commonality to their deaths, the ritual mutilations that followed. The smugglers believed that human sacrifice would somehow magically protect them from being caught by the police and even make them bulletproof. They were mistaken. Their downfall came when a man tied to the cult was nabbed for running a roadblock, an offense that worsened when he was found to have weed on him. In search of a bigger bust and looking for clues in the Kilroy case, cops ventured to the farm belonging to the man's family, the infamous Rancho Santa Elena. There they found more drugs, but they also found the brutally disfigured bodies, including the Anglo Springbreaker, who'd been unlucky enough to encounter the group when they were targeting their next victim. The man who'd convinced his followers to join in his madness was El Padrino, the Godfather. His real identity was 26-year-old Adolfo de Jesus Constanzo, with help from 24-year-old Sara Aldrete, aka the Witch. Constanzo had grown up in the Santeria religion, but his beliefs had morphed into something far darker, of his own design. Constanzo had eluded capture until 1989, when he ordered an underling to shoot him and his longtime companion, Martin Quintana Rodriguez, rather than be taken alive by police. Aldrete and other members of the cult were arrested and charged with a multitude of crimes, including homicide. The killing shack, where Kilroy and others were victimized, was burned by law enforcement after being purged of its black magic spirits in a special ceremony. Shinrikyo. This apocalyptic Japanese cult carried out a horrifying sarin nerve gas attack on the Tokyo subway system in 1995. 12 people died, thousands were injured, and Japan's cherished sense of safety was deeply rattled. The makeup of the group's followers and their extreme beliefs, taught by founder Shoko Asahara, echoed those held by the Order of the Solar Temple, Heaven's Gate, and similar doomsday cults. Asahara preached that the end of the world was near, and that followers would be the only people to survive the apocalypse, which he predicted would occur in 1996, or between 1999 and 2003. Accumulated great wealth from operating electronics businesses and restaurants. They recruited young, smart university students and graduates, often from elite families, who sought a more meaningful existence. After a mind-boggling 8 years on trial, Asahara was sentenced to death by hanging. Throughout the process, he refused to answer questions and has never made more than confusing comments. 20 years on, Japan is still grappling with the after effects of the terrorist attack, but incredibly, still has a presence in the country, albeit in a different form. Despite the attack, was never banned in Japan. While it was outlawed in Russia and designated as a terrorist organization by several countries, Japan opted instead to keep the group under strict surveillance. The group did lose its religious status and was forced into bankruptcy by compensations payments to the victims of the attack, but it lives on in 2 new offshoots, Aleph and Hikari no Wa, which have an estimated 1,500 followers. They claim to have disavowed Asahara, but many Japanese remain deeply suspicious of their activities. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to help me grow this channel.